well, thereabouts, because I am going to work into the center. Okay, and you can decide how you think it looks best for you. And this is so skinny, I might just work into the hole there. Okay, work into my single. All right. And I'll step back when I get to the center just to make sure I've got 16 stitches. And if you don't, you can always just adjust it. Okay, so I'm up to my center hole there, and then let me just count real quick. I'll be right back. All right, so I've gone ahead and finished going across the top of this half motif, and I've got my 32 stitches. I did end up making it with like 1 or 2 more stitches on this right hand side, but it's okay. It's gonna be fine, and I'm gonna try to make it balance on this one, but I'm not gonna fret over it. So I did jump into working over part of the full motif, and so that part's easy because you just work into the singles, so super easy. And then I'm gonna go ahead and finish out my 82 stitches across the total 82 stitches, and I'll meet you guys back when I'm finished making the singles all the way across for row 1 of the striped corner. All right, I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, so now I'm all set. And so now we're gonna flip it over for row 2. So all you need to do for row 2, it's very easy. I'm just gonna show you the beginning and then back away and come back when it's done. So you're gonna single crochet in the first stitch and then chain 2, skip 2, single. And then it's just chain 2, skip 2, single. Okay, so chain 2, skip 2, single all the way across until you put your final single crochet in the last stitch of the row. All right, so I'll see you guys when I'm at the end. Okay, so now I've got a row of chain spaces basically. Okay, so for row 3, you are going to make a beginning DC, which is a single crochet and a chain, and then you're going to make 2 DCs in the next stitch, the next chain space, I mean. Okay, so your first chain space, you're going straight into a beginning DC. So your first chain space, you've got single crochet, chain 1. You're going to be making your 2 DC in each chain space. Alrighty, so I've got 2 DCs in each chain space. All right, all the way across, 2 DCs in each chain space. And I'm stopping right before the very last chain space on the end, and I'm going to work what I call a special DC 2 together, because if a DC 2 together has 2 legs, the first leg is in the chain space and the second leg here is in this final single of the row. So I'm gonna just go ahead and yarn over, insert my hook, pull up the yarn, draw the yarn through 2 loops, yarn over, insert my hook into this final stitch, pull up a loop, draw through 2 loops, yarn over and draw through all 3. So that's how I've got my first decrease there, and that's called the special DC 2 together. So we're gonna go ahead and flip for row 4, and what I'll do is single crochet into, this is another chain loop row, so we'll single crochet into our decrease if we can. Okay, and then chain 2, and then go ahead and single crochet in between the 2 DC groups. So when we chain 2, we're gonna single crochet in between, in the space in between the 2 DC, the somewhat the beginning, and then we're gonna see what we do at that side, but I'll see you guys when I'm down there. So I'm at the far end of my my fourth row here. So I'm leaving my final 3 DC unworked, and then I'm gonna turn, and that's gonna try to start helping me create that flat top across the top edge. So I'm gonna make my beginning DC again, and just make my 2 DC into the next chain space. Okay, and that's gonna feel familiar because we did it 2 rows back. Now we're just gonna make 2 DC in all of the chain spaces across until we get to the last chain space. 5, I'm going to make a DC and then make my special DC2 together. Okay, my final leg of my DC2 together goes in that final single crochet, and then pull through all loops on the hook. So I've got a DC and my 2 DC together. Okay, then I'm gonna flip DC2 together, I mean. All right, so this is another chain space row into the DC2 together here, and then I'm gonna chain 2. I'm gonna skip that DC that's there. You can see it's the DC that's in my same chain space. I'm skipping it, and I'm working in between right before the next 2 DC group. Right, so chain 2, skip 1 DC, single crochet in between. Chain 2, skip 1 single crochet in between the 2 DC groups all the way across. I'm at another odd row now when I flip this over. So starting the odd row is easy because you just beginning DC into your chain space, single crochet, chain 1, and then work 2 DC into the next chain space, and then work 2 DC in all the chain spaces across. All right, so we're at the end of the row, and I'm going to make my special DC2 together with the first leg in the chain space and the second leg in the final stitch, this edge. Okay, so we're done. We're gonna flip it over and work our chain space row. Single crochet in between the groups all the way across, and I will see you guys when I'm at the end of this row. Alrighty, I'm at the end of the row here, and I've got my final single with my last 3 DC remaining, as always. I'm gonna go ahead and turn to start the next row, but we're gonna make our beginning DC, as always, and our 2 DC in the next chain space. And then make 2 DC all the way across until we get to our final chain space. All right, so I'll see you guys down at the end of this row. Okay, so I'm at the very end here, and I've just worked, this is the end of row 9. So I've just worked my special DC2 together in the end and without the DC. So this is how I'm gonna try to kind of explain what I've got going on here, because it's a 10 row repeat, so it can seem a little daunting. So what we're looking at is you have your first row 3, which doesn't have the DC before the final DC2 together. I'm gonna call that like a row type A. So we're gonna call that A. Then I've got row 5. Row 5 has a DC and then a DC2 together. And I'm gonna call that the row type B. So how your 10 row repeat goes, okay, and the reason why it's a 10 row repeat is because it's got this chain 2 space row going back. The even rows have this chain 2 space, but the odd rows have the DC, right? So technically it's a 10 row repeat, but what it's gonna feel more like is a 5 row repeat. But really you've got your even rows in between where you're just cruising on back with the single crochet chain 2. But what I'm saying is, the point is that whenever you are working your edge, your 5-row repeat is going to be A, B, A, B. That's how you're going to decrease. So that way it's not confusing whenever you're working through your rows. It's going to be this type and then this type twice in a row, and then this type again. So it's A, B, A, B. The reason I did it that way was because it made the perfect straight up and down decrease for me, like the perfect angle. So I tried to do it. I tried to make it easy for you guys and just do A, B, A, B, A, B, but it didn't work that way. I had to do A, B, A, B. And you'll see why more in a second. So whenever you're on your chain space row after the A, you're just going to single crochet in the decrease, chain 2, and skip over these 2 DC here. And so your first chain space goes directly over. Okay, so when you're working your chain space row after a B type, then you're going to single crochet in the decrease, but instead of skipping, your first 2 DC are right here. Instead of skipping all the way across over here, all you're going to do is skip right the first DC that you made in that B type row. So that's all you're skipping there. And that is what affects the decrease. After a row A type, that I'm just calling it to avoid confusion, you're going straight over the first 2 DC to make your single. But after a B type, you're just going to make your single into the decrease and then chain 2 and go skip only that DC, that first DC. So you're not going to even skip over your first 2 DC, if you see what I mean. So all of that's in the pattern, but I just want to make sure that I can explain it properly on a video so you can see that it's like an A type of row that I'm calling it and a B type, and to make it less confusing. So it's going to be A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. And that's how you're going to kind of work through your stripe rows. Like I said, all that repeat stuff is in the pattern, but just so you're not confused. So now I'm on an A type, and this is row 9, which is like a row 3. It's just like row 3, which is also the A type, just like from back here at the beginning. So I've finished my row 9. I'm going to turn and work my row 10, which is, since I've just explained it, just go through it again. Single crochet in the decrease, chain 2, and then I have no DC because it was a type A row. So I'm going to skip over my first 2 DC group and single in between. All right. So that's going to make my decrease there. And then I'm just going to chain 2 and DC and single crochet across like normal until I'm up to my final 3 DC, and then I'll stop and turn. Okay, see you guys in a sec. Okay, I'm at the end of my row. I've got my final 3 DC unworked, and I'm going to turn. Okay, so now I'm on row 11. And row 11 is going to be, let me figure this out real quick. A, B, wait, no. Oh, no. Okay. All right, so now I'm at row 11, and actually at the beginning, I was confused, is just beginning DC, and then 2 DC in the first chain space, and then 2 DC in all the chain spaces across until I get to the final chain space. Okay, so now my very final chain space here, and I'm going to work an A, B, so I'm on a B. So the B is make your DC and then make your DC2 together. All right, that's my B type of the ending. So now I'm going to turn, and now since I'm making my chain space that comes right after a B type ending, I'm going to single crochet in the decrease, chain 2, and then just skip this first DC. All right, and that is how you're going to finish the entire striped corner. You're just going to follow that 10 row repeat of AB, AAB, 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 and make sure that whenever you work your chain space rows after the A or the B, that you're skipping over appropriately. You either skip the first DC after the B type, or you skip over your first 2 DC group after the A type. And that will make you, following the pattern that way will make you have that up and down angle that you need for the left hand side of your blanket. So all of that's in the pattern, but I thought really explaining it with the A and B thing would be easy for the video. And I'm going to step away and work the remainder of the triangle of the stripes corner, because now we've got our 10 row pattern kind of down, our 10 row repeat. So I'm almost to the end here. Okay, so now I'm at the end. My 3DC I have left here, and I'm going to turn, and it's going to be row 13. Okay, and you can see all the rows, all the odd rows start the same. Beginning DC, chain 2. Beginning DC, 2 DC in the next chain space. Okay, and this is A, B, A, B, A. So this is going to be an A type row. So I'm going to work my 2 DC in every chain space across until I get to my final chain space. And since this is an A row, I'm not going to work the 1 DC in the last chain space. I'm only going to work my special DC 2 together. All right, so when I get down there, I'll show you that, guys, and then I'm going to step away and finish the corner, and then I'll show you guys when it's done, since all of the repeat is all worked out. All right, I'll see you guys in a sec. Okay, so I'm at the end, and it's my A type, so I've just got my DC2 together there. I don't have the single in the same space at all. I'm gonna go ahead and turn. Okay. All right. Now all I'm going to show you here is just a reminder of how you start on the even row after your A style row. So I'm going to do a single crochet in the decrease, chain 2, and then skip over my first 2 DC. Skip your first 2 DC. Okay. And make your single crochet in between just like normal. All right, so guys, that's how you make your striped corner. Of course, in between, you're going to be changing colors. But okay, so now I'm almost to the top corner. And I wanted to show you guys, first of all, how do you find your place if you get lost, if you can't remember where you are in your 10 row repeat. So you can just count the rows, but what I do is I start at the bottom. This is the bottom row. I go A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. So I'm on a B row, which is a DC and a special DC2 together in the final chain space. Okay. So I just wanted to show you guys that before I kind of got finished. So now I'm going to work the start of the chain row as I do after a B row. Just skip that DC. Okay, I've got my 3 DC remaining already after just 2 chain spaces because that's how close I am to the corner. So now I'm going to turn, and all I can do now is just make my beginning DC after that beginning DC, since I only have 2 chain spaces here, and then close it off. All right, and guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed the triangle stripe corner, and happy crafting. And what else? I'll see you guys on the next part of the cowl. Happy crafting, y'all.